Are you still awake? The world outside is hushed now, the kind of quiet that only settles in the deepest hours of the night. Perhaps you, like me, feel the pull of a story that lingers in the corners of history untold by the daylight. Tonight, let me take you to a March morning in 1308 to the cold stone corridors of Westminster Palace, where a young queen's footsteps echo with a purpose no one yet understands. Don't drift away too soon. Some stories are so delicate that if you close your eyes too early, they may slip through your fingers forever. Now turn out the lights, lie down, and let me guide you into a dream of a history that still whispers its secrets. You step gently onto the ancient stone of Westminster's great hall, the air sharp with the scent of damp wool and beeswax candles. Torches flicker along the walls, casting long shadows that dance like restless spirits. It's early, the sky outside barely bruised with dawn, and the palace hums with the quiet bustle of servants stoking fires and carrying trays of bread and ale. You pull your cloak tighter, the chill seeping through the heavy fabric, and move toward the arched window overlooking the Thames. The river is a silver ribbon under the pale light, sluggish with the weight of winter's end. A faint clatter of hooves on cobblestone drifts up, and you lean forward, catching sight of a procession winding toward the palace. It's her Isabella of France, the new queen, barely 16, her golden hair catching the torchlight like a halo. She rides with the poise of a princess trained for courts, her velvet cloak embroidered with the lilies of France. The crowd murmurs their breath, clouding in the cold as they watch her dismount with a grace that belies her youth. You overhear a washerwoman nearby, her hands red from lye, whispering to a stable boy, "She's too pretty for this place, like a rose in a pigsty." The boy snorts, muttering, "Aye, but roses have thorns." You smile at their jest, though something in their tone, a wariness, makes you pause. Already the court speaks of Isabella in hushed tones, calling her the she-wolf behind her back, a name that historians still debate. Was it her ferocity or her enemies' fear that birthed it? You follow the crowd into the hall where Edward II awaits his bride. He's a tall man, handsome in the way statues are, with a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Beside him stands Piers Gaveston, his favorite, whose silken doublet and easy grin draw every gaze. The air between them crackles with a familiarity that makes the barons shift uncomfortably, their murmurs like the rustle of dry leaves. Isabella's eyes, sharp as polished jade, take it all in. You notice her fingers tighten briefly on her gown, a flicker of something anger resolve before she curtsies to her husband. The chroniclers of the time, like the monk of Malmesbury, noted her composure, but modern historians argue over what she felt that day. Was she already plotting, or was she simply a girl far from home, learning the rules of a dangerous game? You slip closer, near enough to smell the lavender oil in Isabella's hair and hear a soft exchange. A lady-in-waiting, adjusting the queen's veil, whispers, "He barely looks at you, my lady." Isabella's reply is soft, almost lost in the hall's echo, "He will in time." Her voice carries a weight that makes you shiver like the first note of a storm. You glance at Edward, who's laughing with Gaveston over some private joke, oblivious to his bride. It's an odd moment, this king so carefree while his queen studies him like a chessboard. You can't help but chuckle, inwardly imagine a king too busy with his friend to notice his own wedding day. It's the kind of thing you'd share over ale if only the court weren't so tense. The hall grows warmer as more bodies press in, the scent of roasted meat mingling with the tang of wood smoke. A minstrel plucks a lute in the corner, the notes trembling like the morning mist. You catch a glimpse of a young page no older than 10 tripping over his own feet as he carries a tray of goblets. The wine sloshes, staining his tunic, and he mutters, "God's teeth, I'll be flogged for this." You stifle a laugh, poor lad, he's more worried about his master's wrath than the Queen's arrival. But it's these small human moments that make the past feel alive, don't they? The page scurries off and your eyes return to Isabella, who's now seated beside Edward at the high table. She smiles at something he says, but her gaze drifts to the barons, their faces hard as flint. She's reading them, you realize, measuring their loyalty like a merchant weighs coin. Historians still argue over this moment in 1308. Some, like Alison Weir, paint Isabella as a calculating figure from the start, her marriage a stepping stone to power. Others, like Catherine Warner, suggest she was a dutiful wife, her ambition born later from betrayal and neglect. The truth, as always, lies in the shadows of the sources, chronicles written by monks who loved a good scandal, or letters that hint but never confess. Did Isabella arrive in England with a plan, or did the court's cruelty shape her into the Viper Queen? You watch her now, her delicate hands folding a napkin with precision, and wonder what secret she carried that day. You step back, blending into the crowd as the feast begins. The clink of goblets and the low hum of conversation fill the air, but there's an undercurrent of unease like a river waiting to flood. You remember that washerwoman's words, roses and thorns, and feel a prickle of anticipation. This is no ordinary queen, and this is no ordinary court. As you drift toward the hall's edge, the torchlight dims, and the cold stone underfoot feels like a promise of stories yet to unfold. You'll return here to this palace, to these whispers, as Isabella's tale weaves through the years. For now, let the shadows hold their secrets, and let the night carry you closer to sleep. You're still here, aren't you? The night is deep now, wrapping you in its quiet embrace where the past feels closer than the present. Let's slip back into that dream, to the muddy streets of Dover in February 1308, where the sea air stings your face and a young queen steps onto English soil for the first time. The waves whisper secrets as they lap against the shore, and the crowd's murmurs carry a weight no one can yet name. Stay with me, don't drift away. This story is a fragile thread woven from moments history nearly forgot. Lie back, let the world fade, and follow me to a coast where a golden bride begins her journey. You stand on the pebbled beach of Dover, the wind sharp with salt and the faint rot of seaweed. The sky is a heavy gray cloud sagging like wet wool, and the air hums with the creak of ships' rigging and the shouts of sailors unloading trunks. Your boots sink into the damp earth as you join the crowd gathered at the dock, their faces flushed from cold and curiosity. Torches sputter in the breeze, casting a warm glow on the banners flapping above golden lilies of France intertwined with England's lions. The ship from Boulogne has just anchored, its sails furled like tired wings, and a hush falls as a figure appears at the gangplank. It's Isabella, the 12-year-old bride of Edward II, her slight frame swathed in furs that shimmer with Parisian embroidery. Her hair braided with pearls catches the torchlight, and you hear a fisherman nearby mutter, "She's a child, but looks like she's already queen." You smile, leave it to a fisherman to state the obvious with such awe. She steps onto the shore, her small feet steady despite the rocking plank, and the crowd parts like a tide. You catch the scent of her perfume rosewater delicate against the briny air, and notice the way her eyes bright as cut emeralds scan the faces around her. Edward II waits at the head of the welcoming party, his golden hair tousled by the wind, his smile more polite than warm. Beside him, as always, is Piers Gaveston, lounging with a grin that makes the barons scowl. You overhear a merchant whisper to his wife, "The king's more taken with that peacock than his bride." The wife snorts peacock, more like a stray dog with a velvet collar. Their jest pulls a chuckle from you, but it's tinged with unease. The court's tension is palpable, like the static before a storm, and historians still debate how much Isabella understood of it that day. Was she a naive girl dazzled by her new role, or already sharp enough to see the fault lines in her husband's court? You move closer, the pebbles crunching underfoot, and watch as Isabella curtsies to Edward. Her gown heavy with silver thread pools around her like liquid moonlight. The chronicler Froissart later wrote of her beauty, claiming it outshone all others, but some historians like Lisa Hilton argue her charm was less about looks and more about her quick mind. Did she sense even then the challenge of winning a king who seemed distracted? Edward takes her hand, his touch brief, and leads her toward a waiting litter. Gaveston trails behind, tossing a jest to a knight that makes the man's face redden. You catch Isabella's glance toward them, her expression unreadable, and wonder what she's thinking. A nearby page, struggling with a trunk too heavy for his skinny arms, drops it with a thud and curses under his breath. By St. Dunstan, I'll be hauling French finery till I'm gray. You stifle a laugh, poor boy, already regretting his place in history. The procession moves inland, and you follow the crowd's chatter blending with the squawk of gulls overhead. The road to Dover Castle is lined with villagers, their clothes patched but their faces bright with curiosity. A woman selling apples from a cart calls out, "God bless the French Queen," and tosses a fruit toward Isabella's litter. It misses, rolling into the mud, and you can't help but grin at the irony, a queen welcomed with enthusiasm but not quite precision. The air grows thicker with the smell of wood smoke as you near the castle, its gray walls looming against the sky. Inside the great hall is a riot of color tapestries, of hunting scenes, tables laden with bread, cheese, and steaming fish stew. The warmth is a relief, though the smoky haze stings your eyes, and you find a spot near a window where the sea's breath still lingers. Isabella is seated beside Edward at the high table, her small hands folded neatly, but you notice her gaze darting to the barons, their heavy brows and whispered asides. A minstrel strums a soft tune, the notes barely audible over the clink of goblets and the low hum of conversation. You overhear a knight, his voice rough with ale, say to another, "She's too young to stir trouble, but give her time." The other laughs. Trouble, she's French. They're born with it. Their words carry a mix of jest and suspicion, and you wonder if Isabella hears them too. Her face remains serene, but there's a moment, fleeting and human, when she reaches for a goblet, and her fingers tremble, spilling a drop of wine. She brushes it away quickly, but you catch it, a crack in her composure unnoticed by the court. It's these small moments that history overlooks, yet they make her real, don't they? A girl far from home, navigating a world that already judges her. Historians grapple with this arrival in 1308. Some, like Alison Weir, suggest Isabella was a political pawn, her youth masking a latent ambition shaped by her French upbringing. Others, like Catherine Warner, argue she was initially dutiful, her later defiance born from years of neglect. The chronicles, often biased by monastic pens, offer little clarity, describing her as both fair as a lily and cunning as a fox. Did she step onto that Dover shore with a plan, or was she simply a child thrust into a game she'd learned to master? You watch her now, sipping her wine with measured grace, and feel the weight of that question. The sea outside roars faintly, as if echoing the uncertainty. You step back, blending into the crowd, the castle's warmth wrapping around you like a blanket. The torches flicker, casting shadows that twist like the rumors already circling Isabella. You remember the washerwoman from Westminster, her talk of roses and thorns, and feel a thread of continuity weaving through this tale. That stable boy's words linger too. Roses do have thorns, and this queen's are yet to be seen. As the feast continues, a sudden clatter breaks your thoughts. A servant drops a platter, sending a roasted pheasant skidding across the floor. The hall erupts in laughter, and even Isabella's lips twitch, a rare smile breaking through. You grin, imagine a queen amused by a clumsy servant while a kingdom watches her every move. The night deepens outside the sea's rhythm, lulling the world to sleep. You linger by the window, the glass cool against your fingers, and watch Isabella rise to retire. Her steps are measured, her head high, but you catch her glance back at Edward, who's deep in conversation with Gaveston. There's something in her eyes, resolve perhaps, or the first spark of defiance. The hall's noise fades as you drift toward the door, the cold air of Dover biting once more. This is only the beginning, a single thread in a tapestry of power and betrayal. You'll return to Isabella's story, to the whispers and the shadows as the years unfold. For now, let the sea's song carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to dream again. You're still awake, aren't you? The night has settled deep its silence, a soft blanket over the world, inviting you to slip back into the dream of history. Let's wander to the autumn of 1310, to the glittering yet brittle court of Edward II at Westminster, where the air is thick with ambition and the faint crackle of intrigue. The firelight casts long shadows, and a young Queen Isabella moves through them with a grace that hides her growing strength. Stay with me now, don't drift too soon. This story is a fragile ember glowing in the dark of the past, and it needs your quiet attention to burn bright. Lie back, let the world fade, and follow me into a hall where frost and fire collide. You stand in the great hall of Westminster, the air heavy with the scent of burning oak and the sharp tang of spiced wine. The October evening is cold, and the stone walls draped with tapestries of lions and saints seem to hold the chill like a grudge. Torches sputter in their sconces, their light flickering across the faces of barons, knights, and courtiers gathered for a feast. The floor is strewn with fresh rushes, their green scent mingling with the musty wool of cloaks and the faint sweetness of honeyed cakes. You pull your hood closer, the dampness of the Thames seeping through the high windows, and find a spot near a pillar where you can watch unnoticed. The hall hums with conversation, but it's jagged like a blade hidden in silk as the barons eye their king and his young queen. Isabella, now 14, sits beside Edward II at the high table, her gown of deep blue velvet catching the firelight like a midnight sea. Her face is serene, but her eyes, sharp as the edge of a quill, miss nothing. Edward, his golden hair gleaming, leans toward Piers Gaveston, who's been recalled from exile despite the baron's fury. Gaveston's laugh rings out too loud for the room, and you notice the Earl of Lancaster, a bear of a man, grip his goblet so tightly his knuckles whiten. You overhear a nearby squire whisper to a maid, "The king's pet is back and the court's a tinderbox." The maid giggles, pet more like a cat that keeps scratching. You smile at their jest, but the tension in the air is no joke. It's 1310, and the barons are drafting the ordinances, a set of demands to curb Edward's power and banish Gaveston. Historians still argue over Isabella's role here. Was she a silent observer, learning the court's fault lines, or already nudging events with a subtle hand? You edge closer, the rushes crunching softly underfoot, and catch a glimpse of Isabella's fingers tracing the rim of her silver cup. She's listening to a baron's toast, but her gaze flicks to Edward, who's tossing a grape to Gaveston with a grin. The gesture is small, almost boyish, but it draws a hiss of disapproval from the table nearby. You can't help but chuckle, inwardly imagine a king playing games with fruit while his nobles plot rebellion. It's the kind of moment that feels too absurd for the chronicles, yet it's these quirks that make the past breathe. A servant passes carrying a tray of roasted quail and nearly trips over a hound sprawled by the fire. The dog yelps, the servant curses softly. By St. Cuthbert, these beasts, and you stifle a laugh. The court may be a powder keg, but life stumbles on, doesn't it? The minstrels in the corner strike up a slow tune, their lutes and pipes weaving a melody that feels like falling leaves. You notice Isabella tilt her head as if the music soothes her, but her calm is a mask. The chronicler Ranulph Higden later wrote of this period, noting her wisdom beyond her years. But modern scholars like Catherine Warner argue she was still a young queen, caught between loyalty to Edward and the baron's growing resentment. Did she sympathize with their anger over Gaveston, or was she already plotting her own path? The ordinances presented in 1311 would demand Gaveston's exile again, but Isabella's feelings remain a mystery veiled by the sparse records of the time. You watch her now, her posture perfect, and wonder what calculations lie behind those steady eyes. A sudden clatter breaks your thoughts, a goblet knocked over by a drunken knight, the wine pooling like blood on the tablecloth. The knight laughs, slurring to the king's health and his friend's departure. The room freezes, the words hanging like frost in the air. Edward's smile falters, but Gaveston claps the knight's shoulder, deflecting the insult with a jest. Isabella's lips twitch, not quite a smile, and you catch a fleeting moment of humanity. Her hand pauses mid-air as if she's weighing whether to laugh or scold. It's a small, unguarded gesture, and it makes her real, a girl navigating a court that's as warm as fire and as cold as ice. You grin to yourself, imagine a queen almost amused by a drunkard's jab while the room holds its breath. You slip toward the edge of the hall, the fire's warmth fading as you near the stone archway. Outside, the night is sharp, the stars hidden by clouds that promise rain. You overhear two courtiers by the door, their voices low. "She's too quiet," one says, nodding toward Isabella. "Quiet like a snake before it strikes," the other replies. You raise an eyebrow at their melodrama. Snakes indeed. But wasn't it a washerwoman in Dover who called her a rose with thorns? The image lingers, tying this moment to that muddy shore 2 years ago. The court's whispers are growing, and historians still debate their truth. Some, like Alison Weir, see Isabella's silence as a sign of early ambition, her youth no barrier to cunning. Others, like Lisa Hilton, suggest she was simply surviving her later defiance, forged in moments like these, where she was sidelined by Edward's obsession with Gaveston. You pause by a tapestry, its threads depicting a stag fleeing hounds, and feel the weight of the court's unease. The firelight dances on the woven figures, making them seem alive, and you wonder if Isabella feels hunted too, caught between a king who ignores her and barons who distrust her. A young page no older than 12 scurries past his arms full of firewood. He trips, dropping a log that rolls into your path, and mutters, "God's bones, I'm no mule." You chuckle softly. Poor lad, he's carrying more than wood in this court of schemes. The moment passes, but it grounds you, reminding you that history isn't just kings and queens, it's pages and servants all caught in the same web. As the feast winds down, you watch Isabella rise, her movements smooth as a dancer's. She nods to Edward, who barely acknowledges her, and glides toward the doorway, her ladies trailing like shadows. The fire pops, sending a spark skittering across the floor, and you feel the night's chill creep closer. The hall's noise fades, replaced by the distant howl of wind along the Thames. You remember that sparrow in Dover fluttering against the glass, and see its echo in Isabella's careful steps. Is she trapped, or is she biding her time? The question lingers unanswered as you step into the corridor, the stone cold underfoot. This court with its frost and fire is only the beginning. You'll return to Isabella's story, to the whispers and the sparks as the years unfold. For now, let the night's quiet carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to weave its next dream. You're still with me, aren't you? The night has grown softer, its darkness a gentle cradle for the stories that history holds close. Let's drift back to the spring of 1312, to a smoky tavern in London's Cheapside, where the air is thick with ale and whispers of a king's favorite who casts a long, dangerous shadow. The firelight flickers, and somewhere in the city a young Queen Isabella listens to the growing unrest with a heart no one can fully read. Don't slip away yet, the past is calling, its voice as faint as a candle's glow, and this tale needs you to keep it alight. Lie back, let the world dissolve, and follow me to a place where loyalty and betrayal dance too close. You sit on a worn oak bench in the 3 Tons Tavern, the air heavy with the sour tang of spilled ale and the warm, greasy scent of mutton stew. The room is dim lit only by a crackling fire and a few tallow candles that drip wax onto the rough tables. Outside, the April evening is damp, the cobbles of Cheapside slick with mud and the faint patter of rain. You pull your cloak tighter, the wool scratching your neck, and listen to the low hum of voices around you, merchants' apprentices, and a few off-duty guards, their words buzzing like bees. The talk is all of Piers Gaveston, Edward II's favorite, whose return from a second exile has set the city alight with rumors. You overhear a blacksmith, his hands black with soot, mutter to a friend, "Gaveston struts like he's king himself. God save us from such pride." His friend chuckles, "Pride more, like he's bewitched the king's wits." You smile at their jest, but the air feels heavy like the moment before a storm breaks. The tavern door creaks open, admitting a gust of wet air and a hooded figure who shakes rain from his cloak. You catch a glimpse of a royal badge on his sleeve, a messenger perhaps from Westminster. He leans toward the innkeeper, whispering, and you strain to hear, "The barons are done with Gaveston. They'll have his head this time." The innkeeper snorts. "They'll need more than swords to pry him from Edward's side." You can't help but grin, imagine a whole kingdom tripped up by one man's charm. It's 1312, and the barons led by Lancaster and Warwick have declared Gaveston a traitor, their patience snapped by his arrogance and Edward's blind devotion. Historians still debate Isabella's stance in this moment. Was she quietly siding with the barons, resentful of Gaveston's hold over her husband, or was she still a loyal wife caught in the crossfire? You shift on the bench, the wood creaking, and sip your ale, its bitterness sharp on your tongue. The fire pops, sending a spark skittering across the hearth, and you notice a young woman nearby, her apron stained with flour, listening intently to the gossip. She's a baker's daughter, you guess her hands rough from kneading dough. She leans toward an old man, muttering, "They say the Queen hates him too, Gaveston, I mean." The old man shrugs. "She's French. She hates everyone who isn't her." You stifle a laugh, such a casual jab at Isabella, but it echoes the court's whispers, the ones that called her a rose with thorns back in Dover. The memory of that muddy shore with its flapping banners and hopeful crowds feels distant now, yet it ties you to this moment where the city pulses with discontent. In the chronicles, like those of the Vita Edwardi Secundi, Gaveston's arrogance is well documented. His mocking nicknames for the barons, like calling Warwick the Black Dog, fueled their rage. But Isabella's role is murkier. Some historians like Alison Weir argue she was already nurturing resentment, her pride wounded by Edward's preference for Gaveston over her. Others, like Catherine Warner, suggest she was still young, perhaps 16, and more focused on her duties as queen than on political schemes. Did she whisper against Gaveston in private, or was her silence a strategy waiting for the barons to act? You watch the tavern's firelight dance on the ceiling, casting shadows like the doubts that linger over her motives. A sudden clatter interrupts your thoughts. A serving boy drops a tray of wooden cups, the noise drawing curses from the drinkers. He scrambles to gather them, his face red, and mutters, "God's nails, I'm no juggler." You chuckle softly, poor lad, caught in the chaos of a tavern as tense as the court itself. The moment feels human, a reminder that even in a city simmering with rebellion, life stumbles on. You glance at the hooded messenger who's now slipped out into the rain and wonder what news he carries. The barons are closing in on Gaveston, who's holed up in Scarborough Castle by May 1312, and history tells us his days are numbered. But here in this smoky tavern, it's all still whispers, the outcome as uncertain as the flicker of a candle. You rise your bench, scraping the floor, and move toward the fire, its warmth a relief against the damp. The tavern's noise swells, a lute player strums a mournful tune, his fingers clumsy from drink, and a group of apprentices argue over a dice game. You overhear a snippet about Isabella. A merchant claims she sent a letter to her father, King Philip IV of France, complaining of Edward's neglect. True or not, it's the kind of rumor that fuels the city's imagination. You imagine her at Westminster, perhaps in a candlelit chamber, her quill scratching parchment as she weighs her words. There's a moment unrecorded but vivid in your mind where she pauses, her breath catching as a draft snuffs out her candle. It's a small human thing, a queen alone, her thoughts as shadowed as the room. You smile to yourself, imagine a queen startled by a breeze while a kingdom teeters. The firelight glints on a brass tankard, and you trace its dents with your finger, feeling the weight of the city's unrest. The baron's rebellion against Gaveston will soon explode. By June 1312, he'll be captured and executed, a brutal end that shocks even his enemies. But what did Isabella feel? The chronicles are silent, and historians argue over her silence. Was she relieved to see Gaveston gone, or did she mourn the chaos it brought to Edward's reign? You recall that sparrow in Dover fluttering against the glass and the washerwoman's talk of thorns in Westminster. Isabella is still that rose, her beauty sharp and dangerous, but her heart remains a mystery hidden behind the court's frost and the tavern's fire. You step toward the door, the rains patter louder now, and pull your cloak tight. The tavern's warmth lingers on your skin, but the night outside is cold, the streets alive with whispers of betrayal. You glance back at the baker's daughter, who's now wiping tables, her face thoughtful. She catches your eye and offers a shy smile as if sharing the secret of the night's unrest. It's a fleeting connection, grounding you in this moment where history feels alive. The lute player's tune falters and the fire spits another spark, as if urging you to carry this story forward. You'll return to Isabella's world, to the shadows and the schemes as the years unfold. For now, let the rain's soft rhythm guide you closer to sleep, where the past waits to whisper again. You're still here, aren't you? The night wraps around you like a velvet cloak, its silence a gentle invitation to slip back into the dream of history. Let's wander to the spring of 1314, to a misty garden in Westminster, where the air is thick with the scent of damp earth, and a young Queen Isabella walks alone with thoughts no chronicle can fully capture. The world is quiet now, save for the faint rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of a kingdom in turmoil. Don't drift away just yet. This story is a delicate thread woven from moments too soft for the daylight. Lie back, let the shadows deepen, and follow me to a place where a queen's heart begins to harden. You step into the royal garden at Westminster, the morning mist curling around your ankles like a cat. It's April 1314, and the air is heavy with the scent of wet grass and blooming hawthorn, their white petals glowing faintly in the gray dawn. The gravel path crunches under your boots, each step a soft echo in the stillness. A low stone wall encloses the garden, its surface slick with dew, and you trail your fingers along it, feeling the cold bite of moss. In the distance, the Thames murmurs its waters sluggish under a sky that promises rain. You pause by a rose bush, its buds still tight, and notice a figure moving through the mist. Isabella, now 18, her dark cloak blending with the shadows. Her steps are slow, deliberate, as if she's measuring the weight of the world. She's alone, her ladies nowhere in sight, and you wonder why she's here at such an hour. The court is restless. Edward II's defeat at Bannockburn last year still stings, and the barons are louder than ever, their demands like thorns in the king's side. You catch the faint sound of a bell tolling from Westminster Abbey, its notes muffled by the fog. A gardener, his hands stained with earth, shuffles past with a rake, muttering to himself, "These roses'll bloom late, stubborn like the king himself." You smile at his grumble, imagine comparing a king to a tardy flower. But it's fitting, isn't it? Edward's reign feels stalled, his attention still caught by favorites like Hugh Despenser, who's creeping into the void left by Gaveston's death 2 years ago. You remember that smoky tavern in Cheapside, the whispers of Gaveston's fall, and feel the thread of Isabella's story tightening. You move closer, keeping to the shadows of a yew tree, its needles brushing your sleeve. Isabella pauses by a stone bench, her breath visible in the chill air, and gazes at the river. Her face is pale, her eyes distant, and you notice her fingers twist the gold ring on her hand, a gift from Edward perhaps, or her father, King Philip of France. The chronicler Adam Murimuth wrote of her beauty in these years, but also her growing isolation, neglected by a husband who prefers his courtiers' company. Historians debate her heart in 1314. Was she still a dutiful queen hoping to win Edward's affection, or had his indifference already planted seeds of defiance? Some, like Alison Weir, argue she was biding her time, her silence a calculated mask. Others, like Catherine Warner, see her as a young woman hurt, but not yet hardened, caught in a marriage that offered no warmth. You hear a soft rustle, Isabella's cloak catching on the rose bush. She frees it with a quick tug, but a thorn pricks her finger and she winces, a drop of blood welling up. It's a small human moment, and you imagine her laughing at herself, though her lips stay pressed in a thin line. She wraps her hand in a fold of her cloak and sits on the bench, her gaze fixed on the mist. You can't help but chuckle inwardly, imagine a queen bested by a rose, just like the washerwoman in Dover warned of thorns. That memory from 6 years ago on that muddy shore weaves into this quiet garden, tying Isabella's past to her present. You wonder if she feels those thorns now, not just in her skin, but in her life, surrounded by a court that watches her every move. A sudden flutter catches your eye. A sparrow like the one in Dover's hall darts from the yew tree, its wings beating against the fog. Isabella watches it, her expression softening for a moment, as if the bird carries a message only she understands. You recall that sparrow trapped in the glass, its frantic escape, and see its echo here. Is she trapped too, or is she planning her own flight? The question hangs in the air unanswered as the bell tolls again, slower now, like a heartbeat. You overhear 2 servants passing beyond the wall, their voices low. The queen's too quiet these days, one says, hefting a basket of laundry. The other snorts, "Quiet, she's brewing something, mark me, French blood's never still." You grin at their gossip, such certainty from those who scrub linens, but it mirrors the court's growing suspicion of Isabella's stillness. The garden grows colder, the mist thickening until the river is barely a shimmer. You pull your cloak tighter, the wool damp against your skin, and watch Isabella rise, her movements graceful but heavy, as if she carries an unseen burden. The chronicles note that in 1314 she was pregnant with her first child, the future Edward III, a fact that anchored her to the throne despite Edward's neglect. But what did she feel walking alone in this garden? Did she dream of power or simply of a husband who might look at her? Historians wrestle with this, their sources, letters, accounts, monastic scribbles offering only fragments. Some argue she was already forging alliances, her French upbringing sharpening her political mind. Others see her as a young mother-to-be, her ambition still dormant, shaped by years of slights yet to come. You step back, the gravel crunching softly, and notice a fallen petal on the path, its white edge bruised by the damp. It's a fleeting detail, but it grounds you, reminding you that history is made of such small things. Petals, thorns, a queen's quiet moment. A sudden clatter breaks the silence. A gardener's rake slips, striking the stone wall, and he curses, "By Saint Anne, I'm no stonemason." You stifle a laugh. Poor man fighting tools while a kingdom fights itself. The sound startles Isabella, and she glances toward it, her hand tightening on her cloak. For a moment her mask slips, revealing a flicker of weariness, and you feel a pang of sympathy. She's no she-wolf here, just a young woman in a cold garden, her future as misty as the morning. You move toward the garden's edge, the air sharp with the scent of rain-soaked earth. The mist swirls, obscuring the path, and you feel the weight of Isabella's solitude. You remember the tavern's firelight, the baron's whispers in Cheapside, the sparrow in Dover, and that washerwoman's talk of roses and thorns. Each moment weaves into this one a tapestry of a queen who's learning to navigate a court that offers no warmth. As Isabella disappears into the fog, her cloak a shadow against the yew trees, you sense the vow she's forming, not spoken, but felt like the first crack of ice before a thaw. The bell tolls once more, its sound fading into the mist, and you step into the cold, the garden's quiet wrapping around you. You'll return to Isabella's story, to her silent strength and the storms to come as the years unfold. For now let the mist and the night carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to whisper its next dream. You're still here, aren't you? The night is folded around you, its quiet a soft cradle for the stories that linger in the shadows of time. Let's slip back into that dream, to the summer of 1314, to the edges of a muddy battlefield near Stirling, where the air thrums with the clash of steel and the weight of a kingdom's defeat. Somewhere nearby, a young Queen Isabella waits in a castle, her thoughts as veiled as the smoke rising from the field. Don't drift away now. This tale is a fragile spark flickering in the dark of history, and it needs your gentle attention to burn true. Lie back, let the world fade, and follow me to a place where drums echo and a queen's strength begins to stir. You stand on a low hill overlooking the Bannockburn, the ground beneath your feet churned to mud by the passage of armies. It's June 24th, 1314, and the air is thick with the acrid scent of sweat, blood, and crushed grass. The sky is a bruised gray, heavy with the threat of rain, and the distant roar of battle, clanging swords, shouted orders, and the thunder of hooves rolls toward you like a storm. You clutch your cloak, its wool damp from the morning's drizzle, and squint through the haze. English banners, soggy and drooping, mark Edward II's army, their crimson and gold lions fading in the mist. Across the field, the Scots under Robert the Bruce move like shadows, their spears glinting faintly. You hear a nearby soldier, his armor dented, mutter to his companion, "We're done for too many bogs, too few brains." His friend snorts, "Aye, and the king's more fussed with his horse than his men." You smile despite the grimness. Imagine a king outshone by his own steed in the middle of a rout. The battle is turning, and not in England's favor. You catch glimpses of chaos, knights bogged in the marsh, their horses floundering, archers scattering as Scottish pikes advance. The chronicler John Barber later wrote of Bannockburn as a crushing defeat, with Edward's army of nearly 20,000 shattered by a smaller, nimbler force. You feel the ground tremble as a group of English cavalry flees past their faces, pale with panic. One drops his shield, its painted crest sinking into the mud, and you can't help but chuckle inwardly. Such a fine shield abandoned like yesterday's news. The moment feels absurd, a fleeting human note amid the carnage, and it grounds you in this day that will reshape a kingdom. You turn your gaze toward Stirling Castle, its gray walls looming in the distance, where Isabella waits with the court's women and a handful of guards. She's 18 now, pregnant with her first child, and you imagine her standing by a narrow window, the stone cool against her hands, listening to the battle's distant din. The Vita Edwardi Secundi notes she was kept safe during the campaign, but what did she feel as Edward's defeat unfolded? Historians debate this fiercely. Was she a loyal queen praying for her husband's victory? Or did this moment, with its proof of his weakness, spark her growing ambition? Some, like Alison Weir, argue she saw Bannockburn as a chance to assert herself, her French upbringing, teaching her to seize power where others faltered. Others, like Catherine Warner, suggest she was still bound by duty, her heart torn by Edward's failures, but not yet turned against him. You move closer to the battlefield's edge, the mud sucking at your boots, and pause by a cluster of wounded soldiers. A young squire, his face streaked with dirt, binds a gash on his arm, muttering, "God's teeth. I'd rather be mucking stables than this." You stifle a laugh, poor lad dreaming of shovels while history unfolds. His words echo the tavern in Cheapside, where men grumbled over Gaveston's shadow, and you feel the thread of Isabella's story weaving through this chaos. Back in Stirling, does she hear the same drums you do, their rhythm like a pulse that quickens her resolve? You imagine her pacing her gown, brushing the stone floor, her fingers twisting that gold ring from the Westminster garden. The memory of her pricked finger, the rose's thorn, lingers like a whisper of Dover's washerwoman, roses and thorns, always thorns. The air grows heavier, the smoke from burning supply carts stinging your eyes. You overhear a fleeing knight shout, "The king's run off to Dunbar." It's true. Edward II, seeing his army crumble, has fled the field, leaving his men to scatter or die. The Lanarkos Chronicle records his escape to a ship, a humiliating retreat that weakens his crown. You wonder what Isabella thinks safe in Stirling, but surely hearing the news by now. Does she feel shame or something sharper, opportunity? You picture her in the castle, the firelight casting shadows on her face as a messenger stumbles in his boots caked with mud. "The king is safe, my lady," he might say, breathless. Her reply, if she gives one, is lost to history, but you imagine her voice steady, her eyes betraying nothing. It's a human moment, unrecorded but vivid, a queen learning her husband's failure, her silence louder than words. You step back, the hill's grass slippery underfoot, and notice a raven perched on a broken lance, its black eyes glinting. It caws a harsh note that cuts through the battle's din, and you recall the sparrow in Dover's hall, the one Isabella watched escape. This raven feels different, a darker omen, and you wonder if she senses it 2 miles away. The battlefield is a mess now, the ground littered with discarded weapons and fallen banners. A sudden clatter draws your attention. A cartwheel snaps under the weight of looted gear, and its driver curses. "By St. Dunstan, I'm no wheelwright." You grin, another small human stumble in a day of grand disaster. These moments, fleeting and ordinary, make the past feel close, don't they? Historians still argue over Isabella's role post-Bannockburn. Some see her as a passive figure in 1314, her influence limited by youth and pregnancy. Others argue this defeat exposing Edward's weakness was a turning point, pushing her toward the defiance that would later earn her the name She-Wolf. The chronicles offer little clarity. Monks wrote of her beauty, not her thoughts, and letters from the time are scarce. Did she stand in Stirling Castle plotting her future, or was she simply a queen enduring her husband's shame? You watch the raven take flight, its wings slicing the smoky air, and feel the weight of that question. The battle's noise fades as the Scots press their victory, and you turn from the field, your cloak heavy with damp. The hill slopes down to a stream, its water clouded with silt, and you pause to catch your breath. The memory of Isabella in the Westminster garden, her hand bleeding from a thorn, and the Cheapside Tavern's whispers tie this moment to her story. Bannockburn is more than a defeat. It's a crack in the kingdom and perhaps in Isabella's heart. You imagine her in Stirling, the castle's walls closing in her thoughts, as unreadable as the mist that cloaked her garden. The raven caws again, distant now, and the drums fall silent. You'll return to Isabella's world, to the shadows and the choices that shape her as the years unfold. For now, let the battlefield's quiet and the night's embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to weave its next dream. You're still awake, aren't you? The night has grown softer, its darkness a gentle veil that draws you deeper into the past. Let's slip back into that dream, to the bustling market of York in the autumn of 1318, where the air hums with the chatter of traders and the faint scent of intrigue. Somewhere nearby, a Queen Isabella moves through a world of shifting alliances, her heart as hidden as the secrets whispered in the crowd. Don't drift away yet. This story is a delicate weave, its threads fragile in the light of day. Lie back, let the night enfold you, and follow me to a place where every word carries a shadow of truth. You stand in the heart of York's market square, the cobblestones uneven beneath your boots, worn smooth by centuries of feet. It's September 1318, and the air is crisp with the scent of fresh baked bread, ripe apples, and the faint musk of livestock penned nearby. Stalls line the square, their awnings flapping in the breeze, and merchants shout their wares, wool spices, pewter cups glinting in the pale sunlight. You pull your cloak tighter, the wool scratching your chin, and weave through the crowd, brushing past a woman balancing a basket of eggs and a boy hawking ribbons. The market hums with life, but there's an undercurrent of tension, like a lute string pulled too tight. You overhear a cloth merchant, his hands stained with indigo, mutter to a customer, "The king's made peace with the barons, but it's as steady as a drunk on a donkey." The customer laughs, aye, and the queen's smile hides more than his treaties. You grin at their jest, imagine a kingdom's fate compared to a wobbly drunkard. The Treaty of Leek was signed last month, a fragile truce between Edward II and the barons after years of strife following Bannockburn. You catch snippets of talk about it as you move through the market, the crowd's voices mingling with the clatter of cartwheels and the bleat of a stray goat. The treaty meant to curb Edward's favorites like Hugh Despenser feels like a bandage on a festering wound. Isabella, now 22 and mother to 2 sons, is said to have helped broker the peace, her diplomacy noted in the Vita Edwardi Secundi. But historians debate her motives. Was she a loyal queen, smoothing her husband's path? Or was she weaving her own web, quietly aligning with men like Roger Mortimer, who lingers on the edges of power? You pause by a stall selling dried herbs, their sharp scent tickling your nose, and wonder what Isabella thinks as she navigates this uneasy truce. You spot a group of merchants huddled near a tavern, their faces grim as they whisper about the queen. She's too clever for her own good, one says, his beard flecked with crumbs. Clever, another scoffs. She's French schemings in her blood. You smile at their bluntness, echoing the servants in Westminster's garden who saw her silence as a storm brewing. That memory with its misty roses and pricked fingers ties you to this noisy market where Isabella's name is both praised and feared. You move closer to the tavern, its door ajar, leaking the warm smell of ale and roasted chestnuts. Inside, a bard strums a lute, his tune faltering as he sings of a fair queen whose heart is a locked chest. The crowd chuckles, but you sense the truth beneath the jest. Isabella's thoughts are a mystery even to those who watch her closest. You step into the tavern, the floor sticky with spilled drink, and find a spot near the fire. Its heat warms your hands, chasing away the autumn chill, and you notice a small human moment. A girl no older than 10 sweeps the hearth, her broom catching a stray chestnut that rolls into the flames. She gasps, then giggles, whispering to herself, "There goes supper." You stifle a laugh, poor child losing her snack to the fire while the kingdom loses its peace. It's these fleeting details that make history feel alive, don't they? You glance at a table where 2 clerks argue over a parchment, their quills scratching like tiny claws. One mutters the Queen's letters to France, they're more than pleasantries. The other snorts, "Letters. She's probably begging her father to send an army." You raise an eyebrow, such gossip, but it fuels the debate historians still wrestle with. Was Isabella already plotting with foreign allies, or was she simply a queen trying to hold a fractured court together? The chronicles, like those of Ranulph Higden, praise Isabella's grace in 1318, but they're silent on her deeper intentions. Some scholars, like Alison Weir, argue she was laying the groundwork for rebellion, her diplomacy a mask for ambition. Others, like Catherine Warner, see her as a mediator, her French upbringing giving her the skill to navigate Edward's chaotic court. The truth lies in the gaps, letters lost, conversations unrecorded, a queen's heart veiled by duty. You imagine her in York's castle, perhaps in a chamber hung with tapestries, her fingers tracing the threads of a hunting scene like the one in Westminster's hall. Does she see herself in the stag, pursued but cunning, or in the hounds, relentless and sharp? You recall the raven on Bannockburn's field, its dark omen, and feel its echo here in the market's restless buzz. A sudden clatter breaks your thoughts. A cart outside tips, spilling apples across the cobbles. The driver curses by St. Cuthbert, "I'm no juggler," and scrambles to gather his wares as passers-by laugh. You grin, another stumble in a world of grand schemes, like the squire at Bannockburn dreaming of stables. The market's noise swells, a fishmonger's shout cutting through the din. Fresh cod straight from the sea. You catch the briny scent, a faint reminder of Dover's shore where Isabella first stepped onto English soil. That memory with its flapping banners and the washerwoman's talk of thorns weaves into this moment, tying her journey to this crowded square. The crowd parts briefly, and you glimpse a royal messenger, his cloak emblazoned with lions, hurrying toward the castle. Is he carrying news for Isabella, or orders from Edward? You'll never know, but the sight quickens your pulse like a thread pulling tighter in her story. You step back into the market, the air sharp with the scent of crushed herbs and damp wool. The sun breaks through the clouds, casting a pale glow on the stalls, and you notice a weaver selling a tapestry, its colors vibrant, but its scene unfinished, a hunt the stag still free. It feels like Isabella's life half-woven, its end unclear. You imagine her in the castle, her quill pausing over a letter, her breath catching as a draught stirs the candlelight. It's a human moment unrecorded but vivid, a queen alone, her thoughts as intricate as the tapestry's threads. Historians argue over what she planned in 1318, a loyal wife's diplomacy or a rebel's first steps. The sources' monastic chronicles, baronial records offer only hints, their biases clouding the truth. You move toward the square's edge, the cobblestones slick underfoot, and pause by a fountain, its water cold against your fingers. The market's hum fades, replaced by the distant toll of a church bell, its notes heavy with the weight of time. You recall the sparrow in Dover, the raven at Bannockburn, the rose in Westminster's garden, and feel their echoes here in York's restless heart. Isabella is no longer the girl who stepped onto Dover's shore, but she's not yet the she-wolf of legend. Her silence, her secrets are a tapestry still weaving. You'll return to her story, to the whispers and the shadows as the years unfold. For now, let the market's fading din and the night's gentle embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to spin its next dream. You're still here, aren't you? The night has woven its quiet around you, a soft cocoon where the past whispers its secrets. Let's drift back into that dream, to the winter of 1321, to a cold chamber in Westminster Palace where the air is sharp with frost and the growing shadow of a new favorite hue dispenser tightens its hold on a fractured court. Somewhere within these walls, Isabella, a queen of 25, watches with eyes that conceal a storm. Don't slip away yet. This story is a fragile flame flickering in the dark of history, and it needs your gentle presence to burn true. Lie back, let the world fade, and follow me to a place where loyalty frays and a queen's patience wears thin. You stand in a dimly lit chamber in Westminster, the stone walls glistening with damp, their chill seeping through your cloak. It's January 1321, and the air carries the scent of burning cedar and the faint, sour tang of ink from a nearby table where clerks scribble accounts. A single brazier glows in the corner, its embers casting a warm flicker across tapestries of faded saints, their woven eyes seeming to watch the room. You pull your hood closer, the wool rough against your skin, and move toward a narrow window, its leaded glass warped and cold. Outside, the Thames lies frozen its surface, a dull silver under a sky heavy with snow. The court is quiet, but it's a tense silence, like the pause before a blade falls. You hear a soft creak, wooden floorboards underfoot, and turn to see a servant stoking the brazier, his breath clouding in the frigid air. He mutters to a passing page, "Dispenser's got the king's ear now." God help us all. The page snickers, aye, and his purse too, like a fox in the treasury. You smile at their jest, but the words carry weight. Hugh Dispenser, Edward II's new favorite, has risen fast, his ambition a spark in a kingdom already smoldering. The barons are restless, their anger over Dispenser's greed boiling into rebellion. The Dispenser War, as historians call it, is brewing. Barons like Roger Mortimer and Thomas of Lancaster are rallying against Edward's favoritism, their forces gathering in the marches. You overhear two clerks by the table, their voices low as they shuffle parchments. The Queen's no friend to Dispenser, one whispers, his quill trembling. She's too proud to share the king with a vulture like him. The other chuckles. Proud she's French, she'd rather burn the court down than bow to him. You grin at their gossip, echoing the market whispers in York about Isabella's scheming blood. That memory with its flapping awnings and apple carts ties you to this icy chamber where the Queen's name is both a shield and a weapon. The Vita Eduardi Secundi notes Isabella's growing frustration in these years, caught between a husband who ignores her and a court that distrusts her. But what did she plan? Historians debate this fiercely. Was she already aligning with the rebels? Or was she still a queen bound by duty, her anger only a flicker? You step closer to the brazier, its heat a faint comfort, and notice a tapestry on the far wall, a hunt the stag cornered by hounds, much like the one in York's market. It feels like a mirror of the court with Despenser as the hound and Edward the stag too blind to see the trap. You imagine Isabella here perhaps earlier this day, her breath catching as she passes this very tapestry. Her gown heavy with velvet would brush the floor, her fingers twisting that gold ring from the Westminster garden. You recall the thorn that pricked her there, the blood she hid, and feel its echo now, her pride wounded by Despenser's rise, her patience thinning like the ice on the Thames. A sudden clatter breaks your thoughts. The servant drops a log, its bark scattering across the floor. He curses, "By St. Dunstan, I'm no carpenter." You stifle a laugh, poor man battling firewood while a kingdom battles itself. These small moments ground you, don't they? History isn't just kings and queens, it's servants and clerks all caught in the same storm. You move toward the window, the glass cold against your palm, and peer into the courtyard below. A group of knights, their cloaks dusted with snow, argue in hushed tones, their hands on sword hilts. One mentions Isabella, his voice sharp. "She's with the king, but her heart's elsewhere, mark my words." You wonder if she's in the palace now, perhaps in a chamber like this, listening to reports of the Baron's march. The Annalise Paulini chronicle her presence at court in 1321, but her thoughts remain a mystery. Some historians like Alison Weir argue she was quietly supporting the rebels, her resentment of Despenser fueling secret alliances. Others, like Catherine Warner, suggest she was still loyal, her role as mother to young Edward III tying her to the crown. The truth lies in the shadows, letters burned, whispers unrecorded, a queen's motives as elusive as the snowflakes swirling outside. A soft flutter catches your eye. A sparrow like the one in Dover's Hall perches on the window's edge, its feathers fluffed against the cold. It pecks at the frost, then darts away, a fleeting reminder of Isabella's own trapped spirit. You recall the raven at Bannockburn, the rose in the garden, and feel their threads weaving through this moment. Is she plotting escape or enduring in silence? You imagine her standing here, her gaze on the frozen river, her breath fogging the glass. In your mind she pauses a human moment unrecorded, a queen alone, her thoughts heavy as the snow. You smile to yourself, imagine a queen undone by a cold window while a kingdom frays around her. The clerk's voices rise again, one muttering, "If Despenser falls, the queen'll rise, French or not." Their words echo the washerwoman in Dover, her talk of thorns, and you feel the continuity of Isabella's story, sharp and unyielding. The chamber grows colder, the brazier's glow fading as the fire dwindles. You hear a distant bell from Westminster Abbey, its toll heavy with the weight of time. The court is a powder keg with Despenser's greed and Edward's weakness pushing the barons to open revolt. By summer, the rebels will force Despenser's exile, a brief victory before Edward strikes back. But what of Isabella? Did she cheer the barons in secret or mourn the chaos threatening her son's future? The sources, monastic chronicles, baronial complaints, offer only glimpses, their biases clouding her heart. You step back, the floor creaking underfoot, and notice a tapestry thread loose, dangling like an unfinished tale. It's a small detail, but it feels like Isabella's life woven tightly yet fraying at the edges. You move toward the door, the air sharp with frost and the faint scent of ink. The courtyard below is empty now, the knights gone, their footprints filling with snow. You recall the market in York, the tavern in Cheapside, the battlefield at Bannockburn, each moment a stitch in Isabella's story. She's no longer the girl who stepped onto Dover's shore, nor the silent queen of the misty garden. Her thorns are sharpening, her patience thinning, but her path remains unclear. A sudden gust rattles the window, and you glance back at the sparrow's perch, now empty. The chamber feels smaller, the walls closing in, and you sense the weight of Isabella's choices heavy as the snow outside. You'll return to her world, to the schemes and the shadows as the years unfold. For now, let the frosts quiet and the night's embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to weave its next dream. You're still here, aren't you? The night has settled deep its silence, a soft cradle for the stories that history whispers in the dark. Let's drift back into that dream, to the stormy channel crossing in the spring of 1325, where the sea roars and a Queen Isabella sails toward France with a heart heavy with purpose. The salt air stings and the horizon holds secrets no chronicle can fully unravel. Don't slip away now. This tale is a fragile wave cresting in the shadows of the past, and it needs your quiet presence to carry it forward. Lie back, let the world dissolve, and follow me to a ship where a queen's exile begins to shape a rebellion. You stand on the swaying deck of a cog bound for Bologna, the wood creaking underfoot as the ship battles a churning sea. It's March 1325, and the air is sharp with salt and the damp musk of wet ropes. The sky is a tumult of gray clouds, their edges frayed like torn parchment, and the wind whips your cloak, its wool sodden and heavy. You grip the rail slick with spray and squint through the mist at the distant French coast, a faint line of green beyond the waves. The crew shouts over the gale, their voices hoarse as they secure sails flapping like frantic wings. You overhear a sailor, his beard crusted with salt, mutter to his mate, "Carrying a queen's no easy task, she's got more baggage than trunks." His mate laughs, "Aye, and a sharper tongue than this storm." You smile at their jest, imagine sailors grumbling about a queen while wrestling the sea itself. Isabella stands at the ship's prow, her figure small but steady against the wind, her cloak embroidered with faded lilies of France. She's 29 now, her face pale but resolute, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Edward II sent her to France to negotiate peace with her brother King Charles IV over disputes in Gascony, but the court whispers she's fleeing more than diplomacy. Hugh Despenser's grip on Edward has made England a cage. The Annales Paulini note her departure, but historians debate her intent. Was she a dutiful envoy, or was this exile the first step in a calculated rebellion? Some, like Alison Weir, argue she saw France as a stage to rally allies, her estrangement from Edward fueling her ambition. Others, like Catherine Warner, suggest she left reluctantly, her heart still tied to her role as queen and mother to young Edward III. You watch her now, her hands gripping the rail, and wonder what storms brew within her. The ship lurches, a wave crashing over the deck, and you stumble, your boots slipping on the wet planks. A young cabin boy, no older than 12, scurries past, hauling a bucket of seawater. He trips, splashing himself, and mutters, "God's bones, I'm no fish." You stifle a laugh, poor lad, soaked, while a kingdom shifts beneath him. The moment feels human, a fleeting anchor in the chaos of the sea, and it reminds you of the page in Westminster cursing his firewood, or the squire at Bannockburn dreaming of stables. You glance at Isabella, who hasn't flinched at the wave, her gaze unwavering. Does she feel the weight of this journey, or is she already plotting her return? You imagine her in the hold below, perhaps later tonight, her quill scratching a letter by candlelight, the flame flickering with each pitch of the ship. It's a small, unrecorded moment, a queen alone, her thoughts as turbulent as the sea. You move toward the stern, the wind tearing at your cloak, and overhear two merchants huddled under a tarp, their voices low. She's not coming back. One says his hands wrapped around a flask, not with dispenser ruling the roost. The other snorts, she's French, she'll bring an army before she bows to that snake. Their words echo the clerks in Westminster's cold chamber, their talk of vultures and French blood, and you feel the thread of Isabella's story weaving tighter. That memory with its frosty air and fading brazier ties you to this stormy deck where the Queen's exile feels like both escape and strategy. You recall the washerwoman in Dover, her talk of roses and thorns, and see Isabella as that rose again, beautiful but sharp enough to draw blood. The sea calms slightly, the waves settling into a restless rhythm, and you catch the faint scent of tar from the ship's seams. A gull cries overhead, its wings slicing the gray air, and you remember the sparrow in Dover's hall, the raven at Bannockburn, the one Isabella watched in Westminster's garden. This gull feels like another omen, its call sharp as the choices she faces. The chronicles, like those of Jean Froissart, describe her warm reception in France, welcomed by her brother as a royal envoy. But what did she plan in those Parisian halls? Did she dream of reconciliation with Edward, or was she forging alliances with men like Roger Mortimer, exiled and bitter in France? Historians grapple with this moment. Weir sees her as a rebel in waiting, her diplomacy a cover for gathering support. Warner argues she was still a queen, her rebellion born later from desperation. A sudden jolt shakes the ship. A rope snaps and the crew scrambles to secure it, their curses swallowed by the wind. One sailor, wrestling with the sail, shouts, "By St. Nicholas, I'm no spider." You grin, another stumble in a world of grand schemes, like the cart driver in York's Market or the servant in Cheapside. The deck tilts again and you steady yourself, your hands numb from the cold rail. You imagine Isabella in her cabin, the walls creaking around her, her face lit by that flickering candle. In your mind she pauses, her quill hovering, a drop of ink falling like a tear. It's a human moment, unrecorded but vivid, a queen adrift, her heart a map of uncharted paths. You wonder if she thinks of her sons left in England or of Edward lost to Despenser's shadow. The French coast grows clearer now, its cliffs rising through the mist. The ship's bell rings, signaling land, and the crew's shouts grow sharper. You overhear a passenger, a cleric with ink-stained fingers, murmur to himself, "She'll turn France against us, mark my words." His fear mirrors the whispers in York, the baron's distrust in Westminster, and you sense the weight of Isabella's exile. The sources' letters, chronicles, diplomatic records offer only fragments of her time in France. Did she sail with a plan, or was her rebellion a seed planted later in Parisian courts? The gull circles again, its cry fading, and you feel the sea's rhythm slowing like a heart calming before a storm. You step back from the rail, the deck slick underfoot, and notice a coil of rope, its fibers frayed like the kingdom Isabella leaves behind. The air is colder now, the salt stinging your lips, and you pull your cloak tighter. The memory of the rose in Westminster's garden, the tavern in Cheapside, the battlefield at Bannockburn weaves into this moment, tying Isabella's story to this stormy crossing. She's no longer the girl of Dover's shore, nor the silent queen of York's market. Her thorns are sharper now, her exile a turning point, but her heart remains a mystery. You watch her at the prow, a solitary figure against the waves, and feel the weight of her choices heavy as the sea itself. You'll return to her world, to the schemes and the shadows as the years unfold. For now, let the sea's lullaby and the night's embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to whisper its next dream. You're still with me, aren't you? The night has deepened its quiet, a soft embrace that pulls you into the shadows of history. Let's slip back into that dream to the candle-lit halls of Paris in the spring of 1326, where the air hums with whispers and a Queen Isabella forges a bond that will change a kingdom. The scent of wax and intrigue lingers, and the city's pulse beats with secrets. Don't drift away now. This story is a delicate flame glowing in the dark of the past, and it needs your gentle presence to keep it alight. Lie back, let the world fade, and follow me to a place where a queen's heart dares to defy. You stand in a grand chamber of the Palais de la Cité, the stone walls warmed by tapestries of unicorns and vines, their colors rich in the flickering candlelight. It's April 1326, and the air carries the scent of melting wax-polished oak and the faint sweetness of spiced wine served in silver goblets. The room is quiet save for the soft crackle of a fire in the hearth and the distant murmur of Paris beyond the leaded windows. You pull your cloak closer, the wool still damp from the city's spring drizzle, and move toward a shadowed corner where you can watch unnoticed. The chamber is sparsely lit, the candles casting long shadows that twist like secrets across the floor. At a carved table, Isabella sits, her gown of deep green velvet shimmering like a forest at dusk. Across from her is Roger Mortimer, the exiled baron, his eyes sharp and his voice low. Their words are hushed, but the air between them crackles with purpose. Isabella, now 30, is no longer the girl who stepped onto Dover's shore. Her face, lit by the candles, is composed, but her fingers trace the edge of a goblet with a restlessness that betrays her calm. Mortimer, lean and weathered from years of exile, leans closer, his hand brushing a map of England spread between them. You overhear a fragment of their talk. Mortimer's voice steady. "The barons will rally, my lady, if you lead." Isabella's reply is soft, almost lost in the fire's hiss. "Lead I will, but not for their sakes alone." You catch a glint in her eye, sharp as the thorns that pricked her in Westminster's garden, and feel the weight of this moment. The chronicles, like those of Jean Froissart, note her alliance with Mortimer in France, but historians debate its nature. Was it a political pact born of shared ambition, or something deeper, a bond of passion that fueled their rebellion? Some, like Alison Weir, argue their relationship was romantic, a scandal that shaped their daring plan. Others, like Catherine Warner, suggest it was pragmatic, a queen and a rebel united by necessity. You step closer, the floorboards creaking softly, and notice a servant stoking the fire, his movements cautious, as if he fears the room's secrets. He mutters to himself, "These talks'll burn hotter than this hearth." A nearby page polishing a candlestick snickers, "Aye, and we'll all be ash if they're caught." You smile at their jest, imagine servants joking about treason while a queen plots a kingdom's fall. It's a fleeting human moment, grounding you in this chamber where history shifts. You recall the cabin boy on the Channel crossing, cursing his bucket, or the gardener in Westminster grumbling about roses. These small voices weave into Isabella's story, tying this Parisian night to the muddy fields of Bannockburn and the noisy market of York. The fire pops, sending a spark skittering across the hearth, and you notice a tapestry on the wall, a hunt the stag fleeing hounds, much like the one in Westminster's cold chamber. It feels like an echo of Isabella's life, pursued yet defiant, her path now entwined with Mortimer's. You imagine her earlier, perhaps alone in this palace, her quill pausing over a letter to her brother King Charles IV. In your mind she hesitates, a candle's flame flickering as a draught stirs the air, her thoughts as unreadable as the shadows. It's a human moment, unrecorded but vivid, a queen weighing her heart against her crown. Historians argue over this pact. Was Isabella driven by love for Mortimer, or by hatred for Edward and Despenser? The sources, French chronicles, English rumors, offer only hints, their biases clouding the truth. Froissart calls her wise and bold, but was her boldness born of passion or calculation? A sudden clatter breaks your thoughts. The servant drops a log, its thud echoing in the quiet chamber. He curses softly. By Saint Denis, I'm no woodsman. You stifle a laugh, another stumble in a world of grand schemes like the cart driver in York or the sailor on the Channel. The noise draws Isabella's glance, her eyes narrowing briefly before returning to Mortimer. You catch a fleeting gesture, her hand brushes his as they point to the map, a touch too brief to mean nothing. It's a small, unguarded moment, and you wonder if it's the spark of something more than strategy. You smile to yourself, imagine a queen's heart stirred by a touch while a kingdom waits to fall. You move toward the window, the glass cool against your fingers, and peer into the Parisian night. The city glitters faintly, its lights blurred by mist, and you hear the distant clop of hooves on cobblestones. The memory of Dover's shore with its flapping banners and washerwoman's thorns weaves into this moment, as does the raven at Bannockburn and the sparrow in Westminster's garden. Isabella's exile has brought her here to this candlelit pact, but what drives her? The chronicles note her preparations to invade England, gathering funds and allies with Mortimer, but her heart remains a mystery. Some historians see her as a lover, her bond with Mortimer a scandal that shaped her rebellion. Others see a queen, her ambition sharpened by years of neglect, using Mortimer as a tool. You watch her now, her head tilted toward Mortimer, and feel the weight of that question heavy as the map between them. The firelight dances on the tapestries, casting shadows that twist like the rumors circling Isabella. You overhear a guard outside the door, his voice low. She's no queen now, she's a wolf with a leash. His companion chuckles. Leash Mortimer's the one tethered. Their words echo the whispers in Cheapside, the Baron's distrust in Westminster, and you sense the thread of Isabella's story tightening. She's no longer the girl of Dover, nor the silent queen of York's market. Her thorns are bared now, her pact with Mortimer a blade being forged. A sudden gust rattles the window, and you glance back at the table where Isabella and Mortimer lean closer, their voices a murmur. The servant stokes the fire again, his movements slower as if he senses the room's weight. You step back, the floor creaking underfoot, and notice a spilled drop of wax on the table, its edges hardening like a seal on a letter. It's a small detail, but it feels like Isabella's resolve, soft at first, now unyielding. The memory of the rose in Westminster, the apple cart in York. The stormy Channel weaves into this moment, tying her journey to this Parisian night. She's a queen in exile, but not for long. You'll return to her world, to the rebellion and the shadows as the years unfold. For now, let the fire's soft crackle and the night's gentle embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to whisper its next dream. You're still here, aren't you? The night has wrapped you in its quiet embrace, a soft veil that draws you deeper into the shadows of history. Let's slip back into that dream, to the autumn of 1326, to the windswept shores of Orwell in Suffolk, where a small army lands under a queen's banner. The air is sharp with salt and defiance, and Isabella, no longer just a queen, leads with a fire that burns through the mist. Don't drift away now. This story is a rising wave carrying the weight of a kingdom's fate, and it needs your gentle presence to crest. Lie back, let the world fade, and follow me to a beach where a rebellion takes root. You stand on the pebbled shore of Orwell, the September wind biting your face with the tang of sea salt and damp earth. It's 1326, and the sky is a patchwork of gray clouds, their edges fraying like old cloth as the sun fights to break through. The waves crash rhythmically, their foam hissing on the stones, and the air hums with the creak of ship's timbers and the shouts of men unloading supplies. You pull your cloak tighter, its wool heavy with mist, and watch as a small fleet of ships bobs in the harbor, their sails tattered from the stormy crossing from Hainault. Isabella's banner, gold lilies and lions, flaps defiantly above the lead ship, and you see her step onto the shore, her boots sinking into the wet pebbles. She's 30, her face resolute, her green cloak catching the wind like a storm cloud. Beside her is Roger Mortimer, his armor glinting faintly, and young Edward, her 13-year-old son, looking more boy than prince. You overhear a fisherman nearby, his hands rough with rope burns, mutter to his son, "A queen with an army, that's a sight to scare the devil." His son chuckles, "Devil, she'll scare the king first." You smile at their jest. Imagine a queen landing like a conqueror, turning fishermen into poets. The invasion is small, perhaps 500 men hired from Hainault with funds from Isabella's brother Charles IV, but its audacity shakes the kingdom. The chronicler Jean Froissart wrote of her landing, noting the baron's swift rally to her side, weary of Edward II and Hugh Despencer's tyranny. You watch as soldiers unload crates of spears and armor, their movements brisk despite the cold. A cart creaks past its wheels, sinking into the sand, and you notice a young squire struggling to free it, his face red with effort. He mutters, "By St. George, I'm no ox." You stifle a laugh, poor lad battling mud while history marches beside him. It's a human moment, grounding you in this windswept day, and it echoes the cabin boy on the channel cursing his bucket, or the servant in Paris grumbling about firewood. You move closer, the pebbles crunching underfoot, and catch Isabella's gaze sweeping the shore, her eyes sharp as the blade at Mortimer's side. She's no longer the exiled queen of Paris, nor the girl of Dover's shore. Her presence draws men like a tide. Barons like Thomas of Norfolk and Henry of Lancaster join her, their banners mingling with hers. But what drives her historians debate this moment fiercely. Was this invasion a righteous quest to free England from Despencer's grip, or a personal vendetta fueled by years of neglect and her bond with Mortimer? Some, like Alison Weir, argue her ambition was clear, her alliance with Mortimer a calculated step to seize power. Others, like Catherine Warner, suggest her motives were mixed maternal duty to protect her son's throne, perhaps tangled with resentment. You watch her now, her hand resting briefly on young Edward's shoulder, and wonder if her heart beats for revenge or redemption. The wind carries a faint scent of tar from the ships, and you notice a gull perched on a crate, its cry sharp against the waves. It reminds you of the sparrow in Dover, the raven at Bannockburn, the one Isabella watched in Paris. This gull feels like a herald, its wings slicing the air as if announcing her return. You imagine her last night on the ship, perhaps in a cramped cabin, the lantern swaying with the sea's rhythm. In your mind she sits, her fingers tracing a letter to her son, her breath catching as a wave rocks the ship. It's a small, unrecorded moment, a queen steeling herself for war, her heart as stormy as the Channel. The Lanarcost Chronicle notes the speed of her campaign, how England's barons flock to her, but her true intentions remain a mystery veiled by the biases of monastic pens. A sudden clatter breaks your thoughts. A crate slips from a soldier's grip, spilling arrows across the pebbles. He curses God's teeth. "I'm no archer." You grin, another stumble in a world of grand plans, like the cart driver in York or the servant in Westminster. The soldiers around him laugh, but their eyes keep darting to Isabella, who's speaking with Mortimer, her voice low but firm. You overhear a fragment, "We move west. London will wait." Her words are steady, but you catch a flicker in her expression, a tightening of her jaw. as if the weight of this landing presses on her. It's a human moment, grounding her as a woman, not just a queen, and you smile to yourself. Imagine a rebel queen pausing to doubt while an army follows her lead. You step back, the wind tugging at your cloak, and notice a banner caught on a crate, its edge fraying like the kingdom Edward rules. The shore is alive now, men shouting orders, horses snorting as they're led ashore. You overhear two barons nearby, their voices rough with salt air. "She's no mere queen now," one says, adjusting his sword. "She's a wolf and Despenser's the prey." The other snorts, "Wolf. She's got Mortimer's leash on her." Their words echo the guard in Paris, the whispers in Cheapside, and you feel the thread of Isabella's story weaving tighter. The memory of the washerwoman in Dover, her talk of roses and thorns, lingers here on this windy shore. Her thorns are bared now, her army ablade. But is she hunting for power or justice? The chronicles describe her march inland, how towns opened their gates without a fight, weary of Edward's rule. But what did she feel stepping onto this shore? Did she see herself as a liberator, or was she driven by the pain of years ignored? The sources Froissart, the Annalise Paulini offer only glimpses, their accounts colored by awe or scorn. You watch her now, her cloak snapping in the wind, and feel the weight of that question. The gull takes flight, its bee. System, its cry fading into the wind, and you turn from the shore, the pebbles crunching underfoot. The memory of the rose in Westminster's garden, the raven at Bannockburn, the tapestry in York's market, weaves into this moment, tying Isabella's journey to this bold landing. She's no longer the silent Queen of York or the exiled Queen of Paris. Her thorns are sharp, her purpose clear, but her heart remains a mystery. You'll return to her world, to the rebellion and the shadows as the years unfold. For now, let the sea's rhythm and the night's gentle embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to whisper its next dream. You're still here, aren't you? The night has grown soft, its darkness a gentle cradle for the stories that linger in history's shadows. Let's drift back into that dream, to the damp forests of Wales in November 1326, where the air is thick with mist and the echo of a king's flight. Isabella's rebellion has swept England, and now Edward II, hunted and alone, hides in the wilderness. The scent of wet leaves and fear hangs heavy, and a queen's shadow looms larger than ever. Don't slip away now. This tale is a fading ember, glowing in the dark of the past, and it needs your quiet presence to burn true. Lie back, let the world dissolve, and follow me to a place where a crown falls and a queen's hand guides its descent. You crouch in a Welsh forest neath the ground, sodden beneath your boots, the air sharp with the scent of damp moss and decaying leaves. It's November 1326, and the sky is a low canopy of gray, its clouds heavy with the threat of rain. The trees, bare and skeletal, creak in the wind, their branches clawing at the mist like fingers. You pull your cloak tighter, the wool clammy against your skin, and peer through the underbrush where a small band of men moves cautiously. It's Edward II, no longer the proud king of Westminster's halls, but a fugitive, his face gaunt, his cloak torn. With him is Hugh Despenser, his hated favorite, and a handful of loyal guards, their armor dulled by mud. You overhear one guard, his voice hoarse, whisper to another, "The king's lost, chased by his own wife, no less." The other snickers, "I, like a fox run down by a she-wolf." You smile at their jest, imagine a king reduced to prey his hunter, the queen he ignored. Isabella's invasion, launched from Orwell's shore 2 months ago, has swept through England like a wildfire. Towns and barons have flocked to her, weary of Edward's misrule and Despenser's greed. The chronicler Jean Froissart wrote of her swift advance, noting how London itself opened its gates to her in October. Now Edward flees his crown, slipping with every step. You hear the distant bay of hounds, Isabella's forces led by Roger Mortimer and Henry of Lancaster closing in. The forest feels alive with pursuit, the rustle of leaves and snap of twigs marking the hunter's approach. You notice a young squire among Edward's men struggling to carry a sodden banner, its lions barely visible. He trips over a root, muttering God's teeth, "I'm no mule." You stifle a laugh, poor lad, hauling a king's pride through the mud, much like the squire on Orwell's shore, cursing his cart. These small human moments ground you, don't they? History is not just kings and queens, it's squires and guards caught in the same trap. You move closer, keeping to the shadows of an oak, its bark rough under your hand. Edward pauses, his breath ragged, and glances at Despenser, whose eyes dart like a cornered animal's. The king's face is pale, his golden hair matted with sweat, and you wonder what he feels. Betrayal, fear, or regret for the years he sidelined Isabella. The Vita Edwardi Secundi records his capture near L'Entresant on November 16th, a moment that ends his reign. But historians debate Isabella's role. Was she the mastermind orchestrating Edward's downfall with Mortimer, or a figurehead driven by her allies' ambitions? Some, like Alison Weir, paint her as a ruthless strategist, her years of neglect fueling a calculated coup. Others, like Catherine Warner, argue she acted for her son's future, her heart torn between duty and vengeance. You watch Edward now, his shoulders slumped, and imagine Isabella miles away, perhaps in a castle hall, her eyes scanning reports of his flight. Does she feel triumph or a pang of loss for the husband she once hoped to love? The forest grows darker, the mist thickening until the trees are mere silhouettes. You catch the faint scent of smoke, perhaps a distant campfire from Isabella's men, and hear the soft clink of armor as the hunters draw closer. You imagine her in that hall, her fingers tracing a map as she did in Paris, her voice steady as she directs the chase. In your mind she pauses, a candle's flame flickering in her eyes, her breath catching as she hears of Edward's near capture. It's a human moment, unrecorded but vivid, a queen poised on the edge of victory, yet shadowed by what it costs. You smile to yourself, imagine a queen hesitating while a kingdom falls, much like she paused over a letter in Paris or a rose in Westminster's garden. A sudden crack splits the air. A branch snaps underfoot, and Edward's men freeze their hands on swords. A guard whispers, "They're here," and you feel the forest's pulse quicken. The hounds bay louder, their cries echoing like the drums at Bannockburn. You recall that raven on the battlefield, its dark omen, and the sparrow in Dover's Hall fluttering against the glass. This forest feels like another omen, its shadows hiding Isabella's thorns, the ones the washerwoman spoke of on Dover's shore. The memory of that muddy beach, the market in York, the stormy channel weaves into this moment, tying her story to this desperate chase. Edward stumbles forward to Spencer, urging him on, but the end is near. The Lanercost Chronicle notes their capture by Lancaster's men, a swift and ignominious end. You step back, the leaves crunching softly, and notice a fallen glove on the ground, its leather soaked and torn. It's a small detail, but it feels like Edward's reign discarded, ruined by neglect. A sudden clatter breaks the silence. A guard drops his shield, its edge sinking into the mud, and he curses, "By St. David, I'm no armorer." You grin, another stumble in a world of grand tragedy like the squire at Orwell or the servant in Cheapside. The forest's chill deepens the mist curling around your ankles, and you overhear a distant shout, "The king is taken." The words hang heavy like the toll of a bell. You imagine Isabella receiving the news, her face unreadable, her hand perhaps tightening on her son's shoulder as it did on Orwell's shore. Historians still argue over her role in Edward's fall. Was she the architect, her rebellion a masterstroke planned with Mortimer, or a reluctant leader pushed by circumstance and baronial support? The chronicles offer only fragments. Froissart praises her boldness, but others, like the Annales Paulini, hint at her ruthlessness. Did she order the hunt or merely assent to it? You watch the shadows swallow Edward's fleeing figure, his guards scattering, and feel the weight of that question. The forest's silence grows broken only by the wind's low moan, and you recall the tapestry in Paris, the stag cornered by hounds. Isabella is the hunter now, but what drives her, justice, power, or a broken heart? You move toward the forest's edge, the ground slick underfoot, and pause by a stream, its water cold and clear. The memory of the rose in Westminster, the gull on the Channel, the whispers in York weaves into this moment, tying Isabella's journey to this king's fall. She's no longer the girl of Dover nor the exiled queen of Paris. Her thorns are a weapon now, her rebellion a tide that has swept away a crown. You'll return to her world, to the aftermath and the shadows as the years unfold. For now, let the forest's quiet and the night's gentle embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to whisper its next dream. You're still here, aren't you? The night has woven its quiet around you, a soft tapestry that holds the whispers of history close. Let's slip back into that dream, to the cold January morning of 1327, to the crowded streets of London where a new king is crowned and a Queen Isabella stands at the heart of a fragile victory. The air is sharp with frost and the weight of change, and the city hums with both hope and unease. Don't drift away now. This story is a delicate thread stretched taut by triumph and doubt, and it needs your gentle presence to carry it forward. Lie back, let the world fade, and follow me to a coronation where a mother's ambition casts a long shadow. You stand in the throng outside Westminster Abbey, the cobblestones slick with ice beneath your boots. It's January 1st, 1327, and the air bites with the scent of frost wood smoke and the faint tang of mulled wine sold by vendors weaving through the crowd. The sky is a pale gray, the sun a faint disk struggling to pierce the clouds, and the abbey's towers loom like sentinels over the bustling square. You pull your cloak tighter, its wool rough against your chilled fingers, and press closer to the crowd, their breath clouding in the cold. Banners flutter above gold lions on crimson, marking the coronation of young Edward III, barely 14, the son of Isabella, and the fallen Edward II. The bells toll their deep notes vibrating through the stone, and you overhear a baker, his apron dusted with flour, mutter to a friend, "A boy king, he'll need his mother's claws to keep that crown." His friend chuckles. Claws, she's already sharpened them on the old king. You smile at their jest. Imagine a queen's ferocity outshining a coronation's pomp. The abbey doors are shut, the ceremony unfolding within, but the crowd buzzes with talk of Isabella and Roger Mortimer, who now rule as regents for the young king. Edward II, captured in Wales just months ago, is imprisoned at Kenilworth. His deposition a seismic shift recorded in the Annales Paulini. Isabella orchestrated his downfall, her invasion sweeping away his reign like leaves in a storm. You catch glimpses of her influence in the crowd, her name on every tongue, some calling her a savior, others a she-wolf. You notice a young apprentice, his hands red from the cold, juggling a tray of hot pies. He slips on the ice, nearly dropping them, and mutters, "God's bones, I'm no acrobat." You stifle a laugh, poor lad, balancing pies while a kingdom balances on a boy's shoulders. It's a human moment, grounding you in this day of grand ritual, and it echoes the squire in Wales cursing his banner, or the sailor on the Channel grumbling about fish. You edge closer to the abbey, the crowd's warmth a faint shield against the frost. The air carries the scent of incense drifting from the open windows, mingling with the sharp bite of winter. You imagine Isabella inside her gown, heavy with velvet and pearls, standing beside her son as the archbishop anoints him. Her face lit by candlelight would be serene, but her eyes, sharp as the thorns that pricked her in Westminster's garden, miss nothing. Historians debate her role in this moment. Was she a devoted mother securing her son's throne, or a power-hungry regent using Edward III as a pawn in her alliance with Mortimer? Some, like Alison Weir, argue her ambition drove the deposition, her years of neglect fueling a ruthless grab for power. Others, like Catherine Warner, suggest she acted to protect her son's claim, her heart torn by the cost of deposing her husband. The chronicles offer only fragments. Froissart praises her as a noble queen, but others whisper of her and Mortimer's greed. You hear a soft clink, a vendor drops a coin, its silver glinting on the ice before he snatches it up, cursing. By St. Cuthbert, I'm no banker. You grin, another stumble in a world of grand ceremony like the servant in Paris or the cart driver in York. The crowd shifts, and you catch a glimpse of a royal procession emerging from the abbey, Edward III's small figure dwarfed by his crown. Isabella follows her presence, commanding Mortimer at her side. The crowd cheers, but there's an edge to it, a murmur of doubt. You overhear a merchant nearby, his voice low. She's crowned a king, but who rules her, or that Mortimer? His companion snorts. Her she's got thorns enough for both. Their words echo the washerwoman in Dover, her talk of roses and thorns, and you feel the thread of Isabella's story weaving tighter from that muddy shore to this icy square. The coronation marks a turning point, but the cost is heavy. Edward II's deposition, formalized in Parliament days ago, was a rare and shocking act, the first in English history. The sources, parliamentary rolls, monastic chronicles, note Isabella's role in rallying support. But what did she feel watching her husband stripped of his crown? You imagine her in a quiet moment before the coronation, perhaps in a side chapel, her fingers brushing the cold stone of a pillar, her breath catching as she thinks of Edward, now a prisoner. It's a human moment, unrecorded but vivid, a queen victorious yet shadowed by loss. You recall the sparrow in Dover, the raven at Bannockburn, the gull on the Channel, and see their echo in a pigeon perched on the abbey's ledge, its feathers fluffed against the cold. Is Isabella free like that bird, or still caged by her choices? The air grows colder, the crowd's cheers fading as the procession moves toward the palace. You notice a torn banner on the ground, its lions frayed, a relic of Edward II's reign. It's a small detail, but it feels like the kingdom itself, worn, divided, yet enduring. The bells toll again, their sound heavy with time, and you overhear a woman in the crowd, her shawl slipping, whisper, "She's no queen now, she's a kingmaker." Her friend laughs, kingmaker, more like a crown thief. Their gossip mirrors the whispers in Cheapside, the baron's distrust in Westminster, and you sense the weight of Isabella's victory, fragile as the ice underfoot. The sources offer no clarity on her heart. Did she crown her son for love or to secure her own power? Historians like Weir see a calculating she-wolf, while Warner sees a mother driven by duty, her ambition a later bloom. You step back, the cobblestones crunching, and pause by a brazier where vendors warm their hands. The fire's heat is fleeting, the smoke stinging your eyes, and you recall the tapestry in Paris, the stag cornered by hounds. Isabella is the hunter now, but at what cost? The memory of the rose in Westminster, the apple cart in York, the forest in Wales weaves into this moment, tying her journey to this coronation day. She's no longer the girl of Dover, nor the exiled queen of Paris, nor the rebel of Orwell's shore. Her thorns have crowned a king, but the crown's weight is hers to bear. You watch the procession fade, the crowd thinning, and feel the night's chill deepen. You'll return to Isabella's world, to the Regency and the shadows as the years unfold. For now let the bell's fading toll and the night's gentle embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to whisper its next dream. You're still here, aren't you? The night has folded around you, its silence a soft cradle for the secrets history whispers in the dark. Let's slip back into that dream, to the damp corridors of Berkeley Castle in the autumn of 1327, where the air is heavy with stone and suspicion. A fallen king, Edward II, is a prisoner within these walls, and Isabella, now regent, casts a shadow that no chronicle can fully pierce. Don't drift away now. This tale is a flickering candle, its light dim in the vastness of the past, and it needs your quiet presence to burn true. Lie back, let the world fade, and follow me to a place where a king's fate hangs in the balance and a queen's hand is questioned. You creep through a narrow corridor in Berkeley Castle, the stone walls cold and slick beneath your fingers. It's September 1327, and the air is thick with the musty scent of damp mortar mildew and the faint acrid tang of tallow candles burning low in their sconces. The passage is dim, the flickering light casting shadows that twist like specters across the uneven floor. You pull your cloak tighter, the wool heavy with the castle's chill, and move cautiously, your footsteps muffled by the worn rushes underfoot. The distant drip of water echoes a slow, steady pulse, and you hear the faint clank of a guard's armor from a nearby stairwell. You pause by a rusted iron grate, its bars cold against your palm, and catch a whispered conversation between two servants passing below. The old king's still here, one mutters, his voice tight with fear. Alive, but for how long? The other snickers. As long as the Queen and Mortimer say, I reckon, like a pig fattened for slaughter. You smile at their grim jest. Imagine a king compared to livestock in his own castle. Edward II, deposed in January, was moved here from Kenilworth under the custody of Thomas de Berkeley and John Maltravers, allies of Isabella and Roger Mortimer. The official story recorded in the Lanercost Chronicle claims Edward died this month, perhaps of natural causes or a broken heart. But whispers then and now hint at darker truths, murder ordered by Isabella or Mortimer, or perhaps both. You edge closer to the grate, peering into the darkness below, where a faint glow suggests a guarded chamber. The air grows colder, the damp seeping into your bones, and you imagine Edward there, his once golden hair dulled, his eyes hollow from months of captivity. You recall the forest in Wales where he fled like a hunted stag, and feel the thread of his fall weaving into this moment. Historians debate Isabella's role in his fate. Was she a cold conspirator sanctioning his death to secure her power, or a reluctant regent distanced from Mortimer's schemes? Some, like Alison Weir, argue she knew of a plot, her ambition hardened by years of neglect. Others, like Catherine Warner, suggest she was kept in the dark, her love for Edward, however faded, sparing her from such a sin. You move along the corridor, the stone rough under your hand, and notice a tapestry hanging crookedly, its threads depicting a faded hunt hounds closing in, much like the one in Paris or Westminster. It feels like a mirror of Edward's fate, cornered by those he once trusted. You imagine Isabella far from here, perhaps in London, her fingers tracing a letter by candlelight, her breath catching as she hears of Edward's condition. In your mind she pauses, a flicker of doubt crossing her face, her heart torn between the husband she deposed and the son she crowned. It's a human moment, unrecorded but vivid, a queen wrestling with a choice that could stain her forever. You smile to yourself, imagine a queen haunted by a candle's shadow while a king fades in a cell. A sudden clatter breaks your thoughts. A guard drops his spear, its shaft clanging against the stone. He curses. By St. Dunstan, I'm no juggler. You stifle a laugh, another stumble in a world of dark secrets like the squire in Wales or the vendor in London's icy square. The sound echoes, drawing a scowl from another guard who mutters, "Keep it down, or we'll all be in the dungeon." Their fear is palpable, the castle a web of whispers about Edward's fate. You creep closer to a spiral stair, its steps worn smooth, and hear a faint moan from below Edward, perhaps, or just the wind through the castle's cracks. The chronicles, like Froissart's, are vague, reporting Edward's death on September 21st, but rumors of murder by a red-hot poker or suffocation swirl even then. Modern historians grapple with these tales. Weir leans toward assassination, while Warner argues Edward may have lived longer hidden away. The truth lies in the castle's shadows, as elusive as the mist you sailed through on the Channel. You pause by a narrow window, its glass warped and streaked with rain. Outside, the Gloucestershire hills are cloaked in fog, their outlines soft as a dream. The memory of Dover's shore with its flapping banners, the raven at Bannockburn, the rose in Westminster's garden, weaves into this moment, tying Isabella's story to this dark castle. You recall the washerwoman's talk of thorns, the guard in Paris calling her a wolf, and feel her presence here even miles away. Did she order Edward's death, or was she a bystander to Mortimer's ruthlessness? You imagine her receiving news of his passing, her face unreadable, her hand perhaps tightening on her son's crown as it did at his coronation. The air grows heavier, the candlelight dimming, and you notice a spider spinning a web in the window's corner, its threads glinting like secrets. You overhear a servant below carrying a tray of bread whisper to another, "The Queen's no mourner, she's free now." His companion snorts, "Free." She's chained to Mortimer's ambition. Their words echo the barons in Orwell, the merchants in York, and you sense the weight of Isabella's regency, fragile as the ice in London streets. The castle feels smaller now, its walls closing in the drip of water, a relentless reminder of time. You recall the sparrow in Dover, the gull on the Channel, and see their echo in the spider's delicate dance. Is Isabella trapped like that web, or weaving her own? The sources chronicles letters. Rumors offer no clarity, their biases clouding her heart. Did she mourn Edward, or did she see his death as a necessary end? You step back, the corridor's chill deepening, and notice a crack in the stone wall, its edges damp with moss. It's a small detail, but it feels like the kingdom fractured yet enduring. The memory of the tapestry in Paris, the banner in Wales, the coin in London weaves into this moment, tying Isabella's journey to this castle's secret. She's no longer the girl of Dover, nor the rebel of Orwell. Her thorns have toppled a king, but at what cost? You move toward the stair, the shadows lengthening, and feel the weight of her choices heavy as the stone around you. You'll return to her world, to the whispers and the aftermath as the years unfold. For now, let the castle's silence and the night's gentle embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to whisper its next dream. You're still with me, aren't you? The night has grown deeper, its silence a gentle cradle for the tales history murmurs in the shadows. Let's drift back into that dream, to the quiet warmth of an inn in Gloucester in the autumn of 1330, where the air hums with ale and rumors that refuse to die. Isabella, now regent, rules with Roger Mortimer, but whispers of a living king, Edward II, stir the kingdom's uneasy heart. Don't slip away now. This story is a fragile spark flickering in the dark of the past, and it needs your soft presence to keep it alight. Lie back, let the world fade, and follow me to a place where truth and legend blur like smoke. You sit on a worn bench in the Red Lion Inn, the air thick with the scent of warm ale, roasted mutton, and the faint char of a fire crackling in the hearth. It's October 1330, and the inn's low ceiling, blackened by years of smoke, presses down like the weight of secrets. The windows, their glass warped and bubbled, let in slivers of moonlight, casting a dim glow across the rough tables. You pull your cloak closer, the wool still damp from Gloucester's evening drizzle, and listen to the hum of voices, merchants, travelers, and locals, their words weaving a tapestry of gossip. The fire pops, sending a spark skittering across the hearth, and you overhear a tanner, his hands stained with dye, mutter to a friend. They say the old king's alive, hidden away in some castle. His friend snorts. Alive, more likely, Isabella's ghost stories to keep us in line. You smile at their jest. Imagine a dead king haunting a kingdom like a tavern tale. The official word spread by Isabella and Mortimer since 1327 is that Edward II died at Berkeley Castle, his end mourned but unquestioned by most. Yet here in this smoky inn, rumors swirl that he survived, perhaps spirited away to Ireland or even Italy. The Fieschi letter. A later document from an Italian cleric claims Edward lived in exile, a secret kept from all but a few. You lean closer to the tanner, the bench creaking under you, and catch more of his tale. A monk saw him, they say, in Corfe Castle, dressed as a hermit. The idea is wild, but it stirs the room, heads turning as others join the talk. You notice a serving girl, her apron stained with grease, pause with a tray of mugs, her eyes wide. She whispers to herself, "A living king, God's mercy, what next?" and nearly drops her tray, muttering, "By St. Anne, I'm no juggler." You stifle a laugh. Poor lass, juggling mugs and rumors alike, much like the squire in Wales or the vendor in London's icy square. You shift closer to the fire, its warmth a faint shield against the damp, and imagine Isabella in London, perhaps in a candle-lit chamber, hearing these same whispers. She's 35 now, regent for her son Edward III, her power tied to Mortimer's ambition. The memory of Berkeley Castle, with its damp corridors and flickering candles, weaves into this moment, as does the coronation's frost and the Welsh forest's mist. Did she know of a plot to spare Edward, or did she believe him dead, her hands clean or stained by Mortimer's deeds? Historians debate this fiercely. Some, like Alison Weir, argue she sanctioned his murder, her heart hardened by years of neglect. Others, like Catherine Warner, champion the survival theory, citing letters and chronicles that suggest Edward lived in secret. The truth is as murky as the inn's smoky air, the sources, monastic records, later accounts riddled with gaps and bias. You notice a tapestry on the wall, its threads faded, but showing a hunt the stag escaping hounds, much like those in Paris or Berkeley. It feels like Edward's fate elusive, perhaps not yet cornered. You imagine Isabella receiving a whispered report, her fingers pausing over a letter, the candlelight flickering in her eyes. In your mind, she hesitates, a human moment unrecorded, a queen caught between power and the ghost of a husband she deposed. You smile to yourself, imagine a queen haunted by a rumor while ruling a kingdom. The firelight dances on the tapestry, and you recall the washerwoman in Dover, her talk of thorns, and the guard in Paris calling Isabella a wolf. Those thorns linger here sharp in the whispers of a living king. A sudden clatter breaks your thoughts. The serving girl trips a mug rolling across the floor. She curses God's teeth, "I'm no dancer." You grin, another stumble in a world of grand mysteries like the guard in Berkeley or the sailor on the Channel. The inn grows louder, a bard strumming a lute in the corner, his tune faltering as he sings of a lost king wandering. The crowd chuckles, but their eyes dart nervously as if the rumor could summon Edward himself. You overhear a merchant, his voice low, say to a companion, "If he's alive, the Queen's reign is a house of straw." His friend snorts, "Straw, she's built it on steel and Mortimer's sword." Their words echo the barons in Orwell, the clerks in Westminster, and you feel the thread of Isabella's story tightening from Dover's shore to this smoky inn. The rumors of Edward's survival, though dismissed by many, persist in the chronicles, like the Moe Chronicle, which hints at secrecy around his fate. Did Isabella know, or did Mortimer hide the truth to protect their regency? You imagine her in that chamber, her breath catching as a messenger speaks of a hermit in a distant castle. It's a fleeting image, but it grounds her a woman, not just a queen, wrestling with a past that refuses to die. You notice a sparrow like the one in Dover flutter against the window, its wings tapping the glass before it vanishes into the night. It's an echo of the raven at Bannockburn, the gull on the Channel, and you wonder if Isabella feels trapped by these whispers, her power as fragile as that bird's wings. The inn's warmth wraps around you, the fire's glow softening the room's edges. You notice a cracked mug on the table, its rim chipped like the kingdom's stability. It's a small detail, but it feels like Isabella's regency, strong, yet flawed, threatened by rumors and Mortimer's growing arrogance. The memory of the rose in Westminster, the apple cart in York, the forest in Wales weaves into this moment, tying her journey to this restless night. She's no longer the girl of Dover, nor the rebel of Orwell, nor the regent of London's coronation. Her thorns have built a throne, but these whispers could unravel it. You step toward the door, the air sharp with autumn's chill, and hear the bard's tune fade, the crowd's voices softening. You'll return to Isabella's world, to the fall and the shadows as the years unfold. For now let the fires crackle and the night's gentle embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to whisper its next dream. You're still here, aren't you? The night has grown soft. Its darkness a gentle veil that cradles the whispers of history. Let's slip back into that dream, to the tense halls of Nottingham Castle in the autumn of 1330, where the air is thick with candlelight and the sting of betrayal. Isabella, once the triumphant queen, now faces the unraveling of her power as her son Edward III turns against her and Roger Mortimer. The scent of wax and steel lingers, and the castle hums with a reckoning long overdue. Don't drift away now. This story is a fading ember glowing in the shadows of the past, and it needs your quiet presence to burn true. Lie back, let the world fade, and follow me to a place where a queen's thorns are tested and her legacy hangs in the balance. You stand in a shadowed corridor of Nottingham Castle, the stone walls cool and smooth beneath your fingers. Its crisp air carries the scent of burning cedar, the faint musk of polished armor, and the sharp tang of wax from candles flickering in iron sconces. The passage is narrow, its ceiling lost in darkness, and you move cautiously, your boots whispering on the worn rushes strewn across the floor. Outside, the October night is sharp, the wind rattles the leaded windows, their glass glinting like shards of ice. You pull your cloak tighter, the wool scratching your neck, and pause by a tapestry, its threads depicting a hunt hound circling a boar, much like those in Berkeley or Paris. The castle feels alive with tension, its silence a held breath before a storm. You hear a guard's low voice from a nearby chamber muttering to his companion. The young king's had enough of Mortimer's swagger. His mother's too, perhaps his friend snickers. Aye, she's a viper, but even vipers get caged. You smile at their jest, imagine a queen likened to a serpent, her reign now threatened by the son she crowned. It's 1330, and Isabella at 35 has ruled as regent for Edward III since his coronation in 1327. Her alliance with Roger Mortimer, once her strength, has soured his arrogance and greed, alienating the barons and even the young king. Edward III, now 17, plots to seize power, his patience worn thin by Mortimer's dominance and rumors of Isabella's complicity in his father's fate. The chronicler Jean Froissart wrote of this moment, noting how Edward's coup executed on October 19th saw Mortimer arrested in the castle's halls. You creep closer to a spiral stair, its steps worn smooth, and catch a faint sound. Boots on stone, a sudden shout muffled by the walls. It's happening now, Edward's men moving through the castle, their plan a secret kept from Isabella and Mortimer. You notice a young squire, his armor hastily buckled, darting past with a lantern. He trips on a loose flagstone, nearly dropping it, and mutters, "God's teeth, I'm no candle-bearer." You stifle a laugh, poor lad stumbling through a coup while juggling light, much like the serving girl in Gloucester or the squire in Wales. You pause by a window, its glass fogged with the night's chill, and peer into the courtyard below. Torches flicker, casting shadows of armed men creeping toward the main hall. You imagine Isabella in her chamber, perhaps unaware, her gown heavy with velvet, her fingers tracing a goblet as she speaks with Mortimer. The memory of her in Paris, plotting over a map, or in London, watching her son's coronation, weaves into this moment. Historians debate her fall. Was she a tyrant clinging to power with Mortimer, or a mother blindsided by her son's rebellion? Some, like Alison Weir, paint her as a ruthless she-wolf, her ambition leading to this reckoning. Others, like Catherine Warner, argue she was a scapegoat, her reputation tarnished by Mortimer's missteps and her son's need to assert control. The sources, Froissart, the Lanarcost Chronicle, offer glimpses, but her heart remains a mystery as veiled as the mist you sailed through on the Channel. A sudden clatter breaks your thoughts. A guard's sword slips clanging against the stone. He curses, "By St. Cuthbert, I'm no swordsman." You grin another stumble in a world of high stakes, like the guard in Berkeley or the vendor in York. The noise draws a hiss from another guard who whispers, "Quiet or we'll wake the viper herself." Their fear is palpable, the castle a web of loyalties unraveling. You imagine Isabella sensing the shift, her breath catching as a draught stirs her candle, a human moment unrecorded, a queen on the edge of losing all. You recall the washerwoman in Dover, her talk of thorns, and the tanner in Gloucester whispering of a living king. Those thorns are turning inward now, her power slipping as Edward asserts his own. You move along the corridor, the air growing colder, and notice a tapestry thread loose, dangling like Isabella's reign. The coup is swift. Edward's men, led by William Montague, storm Mortimer's chamber, arresting him before he can resist. Isabella, spared but stripped of power, is confined, her regency ended. The Scala Chronica notes Edward's mercy toward his mother, but her reputation as the she-wolf hardens. Did she fight to keep her power, or did she yield, seeing her son's strength? You imagine her later alone in a smaller chamber, her fingers brushing a ring, perhaps the one from Westminster's garden, its gold worn by time. It's a fleeting image, grounding her a woman, not just a queen facing the cost of her thorns. You smile to yourself, imagine a queen humbled by her own son while a kingdom watches. You overhear a servant below carrying a tray of bread whisper, "She's no regent now, just a mother and a shamed one." His companion snorts, "Shamed, she's lucky to keep her head." Their words echo the barons in Orwell, the merchants in Cheapside, and you feel the thread of Isabella's story tightening from Dover's shore to this tense castle. The memory of the sparrow in Dover, the raven at Bannockburn, the spider in Berkeley weaves into this moment, tying her journey to this fall. A pigeon flutters against the window, its wings tapping the glass, an echo of those earlier omens. Is Isabella trapped like that bird, or has she always been free, her thorns a choice? The castle grows quieter, the coup's chaos fading into whispers. You notice a cracked goblet on a ledge, its rim chipped like Isabella's legacy, strong yet flawed, admired and reviled. Historians argue over her. Weir sees a villain, her ambition, her undoing. Warner sees a victim, her story warped by misogyny and Mortimer's shadow. The sources, chronicles, letters are biased, their truths as fragile as the tapestry's threads. You step toward the stair, the shadows lengthening, and feel the weight of Isabella's reckoning heavy as the stone around you. She's no longer the girl of Dover, nor the rebel of Orwell, nor the regent of London. Her thorns have cut deep, but they've cost her too. You'll return to her world, to the quiet years and the shadows as the years unfold. For now, let the castle's silence and the night's gentle embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to whisper its next dream. You're still here, aren't you? The night has grown soft, its darkness a gentle cocoon that holds the whispers of history close. Let's drift back into that dream, to the serene gardens of Castle Rising in Norfolk in the summer of 1344, where the air is sweet with lavender and the echo of a queen's past lingers like a fading song. Isabella, once the fiery she-wolf, now lives in retirement, her thorns softened by time and solitude. Don't slip away now. This story is a delicate breeze stirring the leaves of a life half forgotten, and it needs your quiet presence to carry it forward. Lie back, let the world fade, and follow me to a place where a queen reflects on her legacy and the shadows of her deeds grow long. You wander through the gardens of Castle Rising, the grass soft beneath your boots, the July air warm and fragrant with the scent of lavender roses and freshly turned earth. It's 1344, and the sky is a clear blue dotted with wisps of cloud that drift like thoughts too fleeting to hold. The castle's stone walls, golden in the sunlight, rise behind you, their battlements softened by ivy. You trail your fingers along a low hedge, its leaves brushing your skin, and pause by a stone bench nestled under an apple tree, its branches heavy with unripe fruit. The garden hums with the buzz of bees and the distant trickle of a fountain, a peaceful contrast to the clamor of courts and battlefields. You pull your cloak closer, its wool light against the summer warmth, and notice a woman approaching Isabella, now 49, her hair streaked with silver, her gown a simple blue that catches the breeze. You overhear a gardener, his hands caked with soil, mutter to a boy weeding nearby, "The old queen's gentle now, but she was a storm once." The boy chuckles, "Storm more like a dragon with a crown." You smile at their jest. Imagine a queen once feared as a viper, now likened to a tamed myth. Isabella has lived here since her fall from power in 1330, when her son Edward III seized control at Nottingham Castle, ending her regency and executing Roger Mortimer. The chronicler Jean Froissart wrote of her retirement, noting she was treated with honor, granted estates like Castle Rising, and allowed a quiet life. Yet whispers of her past, the deposition of Edward II, the rumors of his survival, her alliance with Mortimer, still cling to her name. You watch her sit on the bench, her movements slow but graceful, and wonder what she thinks in these quiet years. The garden feels like a world apart from Dover's shore where she first arrived, or the Welsh forest where she hunted a king. You notice a young maid, her basket full of lavender, trip over a root, nearly spilling her load. She mutters, "God's grace, I'm no acrobat." You stifle a laugh, poor girl, stumbling through a queen's piece, much like the squire in Nottingham or the serving girl in Gloucester. You step closer, keeping to the shade of the apple tree, its scent sweet and sharp. Isabella gazes at the fountain, her fingers smoothing a fold in her gown, her face serene but etched with lines that speak of battles fought and lost. The Mo Chronicle records her later years as pious and charitable, But historians debate her heart. Was she at peace, reconciled with her past, or haunted by the choices that earned her the name She-Wolf? Some, like Alison Weir, argue she remained ambitious, her quiet life a forced retreat after overreaching with Mortimer. Others, like Catherine Warner, see her as a survivor, her retirement a chance to reclaim dignity after years of scandal. You imagine her here, perhaps earlier this morning, walking these paths, her thoughts drifting to Edward II, imprisoned or dead, or to her son, now a king, forging his own legend. In your mind she pauses, a breeze stirring her hair, a human moment unrecorded, a queen reflecting on a life of thorns. A soft rustle breaks your thoughts. A sparrow like the one in Dover's Hall flits from the tree, its wings brushing the leaves. It lands near Isabella, pecking at the grass, and she watches it with a faint smile. The memory of that sparrow, the raven at Bannockburn, the spider in Berkeley, weaves into this moment, tying her story to this tranquil garden. You recall the washerwoman in Dover, her talk of roses and thorns, and the guard in Nottingham calling her a viper. Those thorns seem blunted now, her fire dimmed, but is she truly at rest? You overhear two maids by the fountain, their voices low. She prays daily, they say. One whispers, rinsing linen. The other snorts prayers, more like bargaining with God for her sins. You grin at their gossip, echoing the tanner in Gloucester, or the merchants in York, and feel the thread of Isabella's story weaving tighter from a muddy shore to this sunlit garden. The air grows warmer, the sun climbing higher, and you notice a fallen apple on the path, its green skin bruised. It's a small detail, but it feels like Isabella's legacy, flawed yet enduring, its taste still debated. The sources Froissart, the Scala-Chronica, offer only glimpses of her later life, noting her visits to court and her role as a grandmother to Edward III's children. Did she find solace in these years, or did the weight of her past press on her? You imagine her in her chamber at dusk, a candle's flame flickering as she writes to her son, her quill pausing over words she cannot say. It's a fleeting image, grounding her a woman, not just a queen, carrying the echoes of Dover, Paris, and Nottingham. You smile to yourself, imagine a queen silenced by time, her thorns now a memory. A sudden clatter breaks the garden's peace. The gardener drops his rake, its tines striking the stone path. He curses, "By St. Dunstan, I'm no blacksmith." You stifle a laugh, another stumble in a world of quiet reflection, like the maid in London or the squire in Orwell. The noise draws Isabella's glance, her smile fading briefly before she returns to the sparrow now gone. The garden feels smaller, now its walls a gentle cage, and you sense the weight of her solitude, light as the breeze but heavy with memory. Historians argue over her. Weir sees a schemer, her piety a mask. Warner sees a woman reshaped by loss, her later years a redemption. The sources' letters chronicles are sparse, their truths as fragile as the apple's bruise. You step back the grass, whispering underfoot, and pause by the fountain, its water cool against your fingers. The memory of the rose in Westminster, the tapestry in Paris, the whispers in Gloucester weaves into this moment, tying Isabella's journey to this quiet garden. She's no longer the girl of Dover, nor the rebel of Orwell, nor the regent of Nottingham. Her thorns have softened her story, fading into legend, but her heart remains a mystery. You watch her rise, her steps slow, and feel the weight of her years, gentle as the sunlight filtering through the trees. You'll return to her world, to the final whispers and the shadows as the years unfold. For now, let the garden's peace and the night's gentle embrace carry you closer to sleep, where history waits to whisper its next dream.